So basically, Officer Lavendier phoned in over the radio to us about a bipolar schizophrenic off his meds, wanted to commit suicide, wanted to jump off the East Grand Avenue Bridge. We located that individual. Our main goal is to make sure that he doesn't jump. So as we're running through traffic now, he starts to dive into his front waistband. It's an indication that most likely there's a weapon in the front area of his body. So as he starts doing that, I give him verbal commands, stop grabbing, stop reaching. And then as I see him start to pull his elbow up, I grab my firearm and point it in his direction. And as he's pulling this object out, I'm starting to get a clearer picture of what it is. And by the time his elbow reaches about his shoulder height, you know, I made a life decision. I recognize it to be a phone. And at the end of the day, the last thing we want to do is pull our trigger on anybody.
I think that was just a great call on Officer Stevens. I don't know. There's so many things that any other officer could have done, and he did the right thing.
Just weeks after the bridge incident, police in California shot and killed a young man in his grandmother's backyard, suspecting his cell phone was a gun.
Show me your hands! Gun, gun, gun! Oh. 5-7 shots fired, subject down. Show me your hands! See your hands! .57, he's down. No movement. We're going to need additional units.
Defenders of the police point out that officers are under tremendous stress on the job. Any encounter could end with violence against them. At a time when the United States is sharply divided over the use of force by police, New Haven, a small Connecticut city with big city problems, practices an approach called community policing. The goal is to foster trust and open communications and to avoid the excessive use of force.
What this philosophy of New Haven is that we need to work with the community. And we need to empower the community. We need to listen to the community. We need to take criticism from the community and take that seriously. And if we do that, then the community is going to be more apt to cooperate with us. They're going to feel safer, and their communities are going to be safer.
And we have to have eyes and ears, and most importantly, hearts that are open to serving them. When you get sent on a call to a domestic, you're not simply there to determine if there's probable cause and make the arrest and be on your way. You need to make sure that if the kids saw some violence, that we work with our partners at Yale Child Study and get them the services they need right then and there to break the cycle of violence. You need to be able to see and read between the lines of what's really going on, and that's what we're going to teach you.
And at all times strive to use the power entrusted to me as such officer
for the
best interest of this city. So help me God.
But shortly afterwards, in early 2019, Chief Campbell shocked the community by announcing his retirement. He cited frustrations with the way City Hall treated the department, including delays in reaching a contract with the police union.
The reality is, in this day and age, many people do not appreciate the work that we as police officers do, and especially you who are on the front line. Do not let that discourage you. Keep fighting for what's right. Keep doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. And fight for recognition, not just with this city administration, but with all city officials for what you do, because what you do makes all the difference.
Because of frustrations with low pay and union contract uncertainties, dozens of officers had retired or left for other police departments that pay more, leaving the force depleted. As Chief Campbell prepared to leave, city leaders said they were committed to community policing. Yet this approach is expensive. It was unclear if New Haven, which has financial challenges, would be able to continue to pay for it.
Sure, I'm often asked if I'm still committed to community policing, and I absolutely am. I think I believe more in it today than I did nearly 30 years ago when I first learned about it. I think that the city can afford community policing because the most important thing that we do is to assure that our people are safe. It's the most important thing that we do, so it's the thing that we should pay for first.
So I think community policing is at a crossroads in New Haven right now. On the one hand, we're reaping the benefits of a couple of decades of hard work and good thinking. We've cut violent crime a lot in New Haven. We've developed some great partnerships with the community to fight crime before it starts and to have good intelligence. As a result, we have a very safe city. I mean, for a city with such diversity in an America awash with guns and drugs, I feel safe walking anywhere. But beneath the surface, there have been festering problems that are coming to the fore that put community policing at risk and which the department has to deal with, the city has to deal with, make some choices, do some hard thinking to bring community policing solidly into the 21st century.
What's interesting about New Haven is that it has a very fascinating history with respect to community policing, pioneering these ideas.
New Haven adopted the community policing philosophy in the early 1990s, shortly after it was introduced. Previously, as with many other urban police departments, policing there was modeled on the military, focusing on suppression of crime and making arrests.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear.
To their credit, though, the New Haven police had showed notable restraint during protests over the prosecution of Black Panthers, avoiding wholesale violence. So the seeds of community policing may have been planted then.
When New Haven began to adopt, implement, and commit to community policing, it was pretty new and pretty radical. In the early days in New Haven, when Nick Pastor was chief, when a particular street corner was contested with respect to the sale of drugs, Nick would often just sit down with the kids and talk very directly and honestly with them.
The old philosophy was ingrained as a militaristic approach to how you fight crime, war on crime, all this kind of militaristic lingo that goes with it. We want to reach out with not a fist, but a hand open. And is there going to be an asshole or a jerk in the police department? Yes, there is. But let's identify the jerk, okay? And if he continues to be a jerk, we'll get rid of him. That happens too, okay? But stay on the philosophy. We don't want jerks. We want nice people. Dignity and respect are two key words in the philosophy of community policing.
An essential element of community policing is positive face-to-face contact between police and residents. This includes walking beats and patrol officers getting out of their cars when no crime has been committed, developing personal relationships and treating people with respect. The same goes for plainclothes officers.
Today I just seen 3 men fall out over here.
But it's also the detectives. They all come up through the patrol division. So it's the relationships. I was a Fairhaven officer. I could go out to Fairhaven. I still have partnerships and friendships that I built from walking the beat 20 plus years ago. Listen, it's not hard. Life, human beings, when you know somebody, you get to know them, whether it's different sides or not, you feel more comfortable talking to that person. Okay, and that's that's the culture of New Haven.
The big change too, what I would say is community, almost like community plainclothes policing, is we actually talk to people. We're sitting down, we're actually almost warning people, listen, we know your names come up, we know you're hot, you're part of a group or a gang, you're likely to be shot or shoot somebody, and we care for you and we don't want that to happen to you. Old style policing would be, we would just go after you. No care, go after you, lock you up, that's how we stop the crime. That doesn't work because we can't go after everybody. And we were taking young black males out of a community that needed them later in life. So they're gone for 25 years. They're not there to raise their children, to be a family figure, to do the things that we need the community to have, those older males, the guidance. And I tried to imagine some of my family members being taken out of my family for 20, 25 years. And I thought, you know, if my father was gone or my uncle was gone, these major influences in my life, it would have been bad for me.
Another key piece is collaboration between law enforcement, prosecutors, and community groups. New Haven holds a weekly public meeting to review crime stats and trends, and 4 weekly meetings to share intel with state and federal law enforcement. The city is divided into 10 districts. Police district managers interact with community members at monthly meetings and whenever issues come up.
My officers have been working with the new bar owner over there. He has signed the agreement, so we have upped enforcement, and we've made several arrests for open-air drug dealing. So we're trying to get that under control. I know that's been kind of a historical issue for this little area here.
One of the most innovative strategies, called Project Longevity, targets young men who seem likely to commit or to be victims of violence. It tries to steer them away from guns and crime.
Project Longevity is designed to deal with the most violent gun offenders in our region, letting them know with dignity and respect the violence has to stop, that law enforcement does not want to lock you up, but they will if they have to, that the community and police stand together.
At the core of all of these programs is a realization that nothing works if the police on the street don't believe in community policing and act on that belief every day. It requires a fundamental change in psychology.
As an officer, you get to know the people in your community and you get to care for them. Offender or not, you get to care for them. And I remember one particular situation in the Hill where we would constantly chase this kid around, and he was selling crack, but he was also even selling candle wax. In one scenario, we chased him for miles. We finally caught him, and he had a pocket full of individual wrap bags of candle wax. And when we called his mother was always great. He was a little older at the time, but still a juvenile. His mother came and said, he's been burning candles every night, and I thought he was becoming religious. And we said, no, he's selling it as a form of crack, and it's going to get him killed because he's going to sell it to the wrong person, and they're going to shoot at him. And he was killed at one point, and I remember feeling terrible. Like, why couldn't we do something to stop him from what he was doing? We liked this kid. And it was very sad. And I think people don't understand, police, that we do go through that because we don't show our real side. But what we're trying to teach our cops now is that's what got us to where we are today, where communities dislike us. And that it's more important to kind of open up to people and have people open up to you to get your job done. Because if they feel that you care, you're going to get a whole lot more done.
While many people in New Haven say they believe the police are making an earnest effort at fulfilling the promise of community policing, others are critical. They say that these days the community policing mantra is more talk than action.
More recently, I'll say after Chief Pastor left, I think that the other chiefs were trying to keep community policing in effect, but it wasn't real. In this city, there are definitely the good cop and the bad cop. I believe the majority of police people come into the city to police actually are probably good cops. I would like to believe that they really want to come in and provide a service. That's why I always say it's not about going after one cop, it's the culture that we have to change, because that one cop is flourishing in a system that's allowing him to do so. So we really have to go back at changing the culture of policing back to more community policing and less of that paramilitary style policing.
Him, he's got the microphone. You're under arrest. No! What the fuck? You're on the fucking microphone. Don't touch me. I'm on the sidewalk. We followed your fucking orders. Telling me to get in the street to move. Oh my God! Oh my God! What are you doing there?
Who's going to protect us from the police?
We are!
Who's going to protect us from the police?
We are!
Who's going to protect us from the police?
We are!
The community policing is done by human beings, and some humans in the police department, they don't behave like the other ones. So maybe somebody believes in this ideal, but then you have like another group of police officers who they think different. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have with this great project that I don't think is happening.
Fairhaven, to the east of downtown, is the most populous of the city's neighborhoods, with more than 17,000 residents. It's a diverse, working-class community, full of vitality, but also with more than its share of problems. 64% of households are low income. Here, the typical divisions between police and community are even more exaggerated. Fairhaven's population is nearly 70% Hispanic, so language, culture, and immigration status drive a wedge between the police and the people. Into Fairhaven as the district commander came Lieutenant David Zanelli, who grew up in suburban Rhode Island, but has taken to New Haven and Fairhaven with a quiet passion.
So what I did initially when I first came to Fairhaven is I started walking the neighborhoods, and I walked into a lot of the businesses and restaurants. I started having lunches in the community, from having picnics to kids in the community to visiting schools. I wanted to show my face to everybody so that they knew we're not the bad guys, we're the good guys, and I want you to be familiar with who I am. So if you ever need me, I'm right here on Blatchley and Clay. You can walk in, and it's an open door policy for me. So this is where we used to have a large amount of drug complaints. We used to have a vending truck here, non-stop loitering, open-air drug markets, things like that. Since then, we work with the vendors to relocate them. We're going to do some bus stop reduction proposals to cut down on the loitering, because a lot of times the people will just say they're waiting for the bus, and it makes enforcement action hard. But you know what? The community has told us who's selling the drugs out here. A lot of the time they tip off our officers, and we're able to make some arrests, and a lot of the times you mix all these results in and it comes up with a good response. And you can see right now it's nice and quiet, albeit it's rush hour traffic here, 3:30 on a Friday. There's no one posted up for the most part, and we want to keep it this way. I come in and I drive around my district, and I see which areas require attention. Attention in the matter of who's hanging out. If they're known people on a corner that I know are violent or involved in a gang, we try to address them or have a conversation with them if there's no crime occurring.
Zanelli frequently takes curious civilians and politicians with him as he drives around Fairhaven. They're called ride-alongs. On this day, his companion is Adam Beaton, a student who wants to be a cop.
and I lost a lot of close friends to street violence in New Haven. So I go to the University of New Haven to study criminal justice, and I figured if I can make it my life goal to get guns off the street, drugs, and I'm doing something right, and honor them.
Right?
Hizo 10 tables.
Ay, es que tú eres bueno.
In the past, we've had, motorcycles come down, we've had loitering and drugs. As you can see right now, it's pretty peaceful.
Oh, shit. Oh shit! Oh shit! Damn!
And we saw the gang fight getting ready to happen. They go in a big circle, and apparently this young fellow was in his car, and the shooter walked up to his car and just shot a couple of shots into the car and hit the individual, and he got out of the car. He wasn't dead at that point, but he ran into the park. His police officers stop in front of our building. They do their paperwork. It's a big help. It's a big deterrent when the police are here to cut down on the quads, the motorcycles, the dirt bikes, the racing of cars, screeching of tires. It's a real quality of life issue for us.
So I think one of the main components of the community policing philosophy is the walking beat. We try to do those as much as possible when it's seasonally effective. For me, on Grand Avenue, I'd like to do it in the spring. I've had it done before, and I've gotten great community response from it. Officers go inside the stores, they introduce themselves. A lot of times it's newer officers, so the community gets to know them and see what their problems are and get familiar with the area also.
Todos los días, so si necesita a nosotros puede llamar. No sé si tiene un libro para tener número. You kind of just speak with them when things happen, generally, because they generally don't tend to call because they're scared, specifically for immigration statuses, and we explain to them that this is a safe haven, New Haven is a safe haven, which they understand, but they're still scared because due to their cultures back at home or their homeland, it's kind of frowned upon to call police and speak with police.
There's certain guys who have walking beats in certain areas of the city, and they're known. They're known to the residents of the city as someone they can talk to, but they're also known to not mess with. So they're tough but fair.
So the main problems that I see in the neighborhood in Fairhaven are definitely loitering, public drinking, a lot of burglaries, drug usage, and it's an everyday occurrence. At least with the walking beat would deter that, because when the neighbors, when they go ahead and they see a car pass by, a police car, you're only seeing that for about that 3-second span. As opposed to a walking beat, you're walking around that block and they see you 10, 12 times a day walking around, and it keeps people from going around that area.
Gentlemen. Glenn. Good to see you doing well. No book bag today, huh? Huh? No book bag today? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, no problem.
I went to a call, I think it was an alarm, and they were playing music in the side of the street. So there was some ladies dancing. So I went over there. I started dancing with them, And believe it or not, the next day I had a call in the same building. And that same lady came up to me and told me these two guys been parked right there and they haven't moved. And that's all she told me. So we went over there, me and my trainer, went over there, and we ended up finding drugs with those guys, So it's like they see you around, they see you're a cool police officer, they will help you out.
In warm weather, gangs of dirt bikers take to the streets across the city, with large gatherings in Fairhaven.
here in Fairhaven, it's not just people in Fairhaven. These kids come from other cities. They come from Hamden, they come from East Haven, they come from North Haven. And what they do is they wear a mask over their face to hide their identity, and they're a nuisance to the public, safety reasons. There's a lot of pedestrian, a lot of vehicle traffic on these main roads, and what they do is they come up doing wheelies in and out of traffic. They go on the sidewalks. They do a lot.
New Haven police don't pursue dirt bikers to avoid crashes and deaths. Instead, they catch the bikers in gas stations or parks when they're off their bikes.
And he appeared to the disciples. And he said, now, all authority is mine in the heavens and in earth. So, go and do disciples. Stop deportation. No borders, no nation. Stop deportation. No borders, no nation. Stop deportation.
New Haven is a sanctuary city, which means police do not ask people about their immigration status when interacting with them.
Everyone, thank you all for coming. It really means so much. You guys don't understand how I feel right now. It just makes me so happy to see all you guys here.
Still, it's difficult to gain the trust of immigrant residents.
So the difference between the police and ICE is that the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency, they just worry about immigration laws. That's all they do is immigration. We worry about crimes. Citizenship does not matter to the New Haven police. If somebody is undocumented, that doesn't matter, we're going to help them. Or if they need to be arrested, we're going to arrest them the same as anyone who commits that crime.
We've had the police here to talk to our young people about, about what their role is, about how they can keep safe. And that's someone that when they see out in the community, they recognize and know that that's someone that they have met and that they know and that they can count on.
Yeah, we have a sanctuary city in New Haven. The police, they are not cooperating with immigration, but we hope that in the future, if ICE decide to come in New Haven, assault or attack our community, we hope that the police in those circumstances, they will be on our side and not on their side. That's our hope.
We're going to tell them what they said. And who else are they going to call? They're going to call the rest of your classmates in.
If you view the footage, it's not like that. Although I'm a supervisor, I enjoy coming out here and just stopping and saying hello to folks while I'm doing my job. And I've gotten to know so many people that they feel comfortable coming up to me and speaking to me or telling me about a certain problem.
So one of the police officers that are making a difference, I think, in gaining trust and earning respect is Sergeant Wilfredo Cruz, who treats people decently, who, as I said, will listen, will talk, will ask if there's anything that he could do, suggest maybe drug treatment or, anything he could do.
The ones that are bad, I somehow have gotten away from. I do talk to the cops out here. I have a good relationship with them out here. They have been exceptionally good to me out here, exceptionally. Like, I'll walk by a cop and I'll be like, officer, thank you for your service, please be safe. And no, you be safe, Chris.
That's nice of them to say that I treat them as humans and I treat them nice. So that's kind of really nice to hear.
Well, I started working out in this gym just as a way to get back in shape and just to be around the kids in the neighborhood and to show them that, me as a police officer, that, we also have other lives, we can still connect with them, that we're not always out there just arresting people, just to show them that I was a regular person. There are times when people in, we'll say, low-income communities, they don't like the police, or they may be reluctant to report a crime because they don't trust us. Seeing me as a familiar face and a person that they trust, 9 times out of 10, they're going to come to me and talk to me about what's going on, and I can talk to them, I can calm them down, I could be that buffer in between a bad situation that may be going on with them.
All right, this one officer named Richard Benson, he actually is really good people's. He actually talked to me when I was about 16, got into trouble. He just told me, kid, this is really not what you want at all. You see, I could bring you to jail right now. And who's gonna be putting money in your commissary? I said, nobody. He asked me if my boys was gonna do it. I said, nobody. So he said, think about that. And then I thought about it ever since.
When Luis Rosa's son, Luis Rosa Jr., died in an auto crash, police brass paid their respects at the funeral, and the motorcycle unit led the motorcade. The younger Rosa was a promising professional boxer and a hero to many in the community.
I think it was so overwhelming, the love that the police shared, the fans, the people, our friends, everyone that knew my son and everyone that knows me.
Personally, the way I do my community policing is I let people know, I grew up here with you. I grew up down the street. I went to the same schools you went to. My parents didn't have any money. I grew up on welfare. It's not like, I'm this guy, and I'm here telling you what to do with your life and my life is so different. No, I was in the same shoes. I am in the same shoes, and I'm here trying to help because now I'm in a position where I can help.
We just got a call about a domestic situation. It states 23-year-old roommate has been staying with this person for 4 years. Today they got into a heated argument and he was verbally threatened.
Yeah, so what happened?
Yeah, I just don't want him to come around no more. I don't want him knocking on my door no more.
That's the same guy. But he's been living here.
Yeah. He's been staying here.
All right. So, does he want to leave?
I tell him to leave all the time. We get into this verbal disagreements. My mom gets all shook up.
We can document this, right? And you can take it to civil court and say, listen, I need a restraining order, and they'll give you a restraining order for now. If you feel like, well, it depends on what the court says, but I can definitely document whatever you're going to tell me today, and say that you feel threatened and scared. Now, you still should start the eviction process. Domestics are one of the most dangerous calls. Domestics and car stops are the most dangerous calls we go to. So, gotta be on point. That's where my grandma used to live. My grandma used to live down the first floor. And I was jumping that fence as a kid, and my wrist got caught in that fence as a kid. And I ended up needing a bunch of stitches and stuff.
I want to be a cop since forever. I can't really pinpoint an exact moment, maybe watching movies and seeing, how cool they're able to solve crimes or whatever. And I like to solve puzzles, so that's what I like. Later on in life, I just started working in a factory, and I don't like bullies, and I always stood up for people, and people always say, you're a cop, you should be a cop. I'm like, you know what, I always wanted to be. And then one day it was just like, what am I doing? This this is good. I'm making a good living for myself, but it's not what's my heart's in wanting to be a police officer. So I finally did it, and here I am.
Do me a favor, can you just come out here? Come out here for a second.
Is there anyone else?
Anybody else in there?
No.
You got any weapons on you?
No.
That's you? Do you own any machetes or anything like that?
This is not my apartment.
No. Do you own any machetes? Is there a machete in here? No.
So next time you see him, you give us a call. Don't confront him. Give us a call. Say, listen, this is the guy that I called about, and we'll come down here and get him. Okay? Oh, he's out. Jeez.
See, I've been good. You been staying out of trouble? All right, then get off the corner. Stay out of trouble. You know, you just stopped by. Me too. I said hi.
So I was working my regular shift. I got called by my sergeant to go help the people from Van Dome, 102 Hamilton Street, because the club was finishing the let out. So and we usually, what we do there is we tell everybody to go to their cars so nobody will fight. Everybody started coming out. All of a sudden I hear what I thought was fireworks, but it was really two guys shooting at each other. Like, this is the first time, I'm new, so it's like flight. So I just got in the zone and I started running towards it. One of them gave up. And then one Officer Lopez, he chased this other guy, and he was by himself, so I chased right after him. And he ended up jumping a fence, and I found a hole through the fence. So me and Officer Lopez went through the hole. The kid ditched the gun, and I ended up just tackling him to the ground and grabbed him up, and we handcuffed him.
If they come out and they're hooting, hollering, you don't want to exactly get in their face and start yelling at them or instructing them too forcibly, because again, you got to take yourself back. When you're drunk, you're not able to kind of comprehend what's going on, and you're not going to listen to direction. So we all understand that. We try to give them a little bit of a leash.
I'm speaking, my nigga. I'm mad. I need water. I don't care what you talking about. Bro, I need fucking water, nigga. What the fuck, nigga? We out, nigga. Go with him. Fuck out of here, nigga. He got mace in his eye, bro.
Most often they got friends who are not as drunk, a little more sober. So those are the guys or girls you got to pick out, the ones that are more sober, because those are the ones that you can kind of talk to and understand the situation. Comiendo. Ah, no. Pensaba que era otra cosa. Está bien, disfruten. Tranquilo. Are you good?
That's my sister. You want to run our bike around?
Boss man,
Huh?
why don't you just let me do a little bit of the talking?
No,
and then,
go ahead, talk to her. Yeah, go ahead. I told you.
Listen.
What?
Tranquilo, Papa, all right?
I
Let
know,
me just
que
talk.
me cojonó demasiado. Dale.
I got you. You good, young lady? Where you live at?
I live right there. Right in the back, bro.
I remember you from before.
Yeah.
Were you there before?
Yeah,
You
she
too?
was there,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, because I saw you too. Yeah. I got you. All right. You guys not sticking around here, though, right? Okay. That's probably a good thing. All right, guys. Have a good night, all right? As tough as it is to get a job out here without a record. So the last thing we want to do is give you a record. So if you see people out now, it's just...
135, Wheeling County, Alpha Bravo, 63207, Connecticut passenger.
And honestly, just like the homeless, people who didn't make it to the shelter in time. they have nowhere to go, so they're sleeping right now, or they're just kind of walking around, trying to find a place to crash for the night.
But the good people appreciate the police, and the partnership is real. I've seen it. I was welcomed with open arms as an out-of-town white officer. And, hopefully we can continue the positive trend.
Lieutenant Zanelli had expected to serve as the district manager for years, but he was transferred out after just 15 months. He called the move bittersweet, but people in the neighborhood were just bitter.
It's a hard thing to swallow, that we're losing another district manager that we really confide in, that, has been there for us, been there for the residents.
The thing is, if you are going to come and do community policing, you should be talking to every alder in this community. You should be talking to every state representative. You should be talking to the community and coming to the actual management team and say, hey, we may have someone who's going to be reassigned, and not wait till the last minute, because that's a bunch of BS.
And I feel like in the last 7 years, we've gone through 5 people. Six. And that to me is not community policing. It's a revolving door because you can't manage the police department. That's what it feels like to me.
I care about New Haven. I really, truly do. And I know the Chiefs care about New Haven. And we care about, and we are still actively, looking at community policing as being absolutely the focal point of the police department. So I hear your frustration. I want you to understand, though, that we care. We care. It's a hard time, yes, guys. It's a hard time we're going through. Absolutely. You're gonna get bumps in the road. On occasion, you're gonna get bumps. But I guarantee you, once we get through those bumps in the road, we're gonna come out on the other side of this more closer than we ever have been.
As Lieutenant Zanelli moved on, he was honored by one of New Haven's churches for his service to the community, and he gave a short speech.
I love my life. I have a wonderful family. I thank God every day for being a New Haven police officer.
During 2018, violent crime in Fairhaven dropped again. Shootings were down 79% to just 3. There were no murders. Zanelli felt the officers had done a great job. Dating from back in the 1980s and 90s, New Haven has been saddled with a reputation as a high-crime city. At the same time, it's recognized nationally for its innovative police strategies. There's evidence that community policing works. Since 2011, a renewed focus on it has contributed to a steady decline in violent crime. The murder rate has dropped by 70%, and non-fatal shootings are down 62%. New Haven's violent crime stats are better than those in Hartford and Bridgeport, similar cities in Connecticut.
I believe community policing is working well in New Haven. And I base that on not just statistics, but I base it on the overall feedback that we get from the community. Last year, we ended the year with 10 homicides and 50 shootings. That's the lowest since we've ever been documenting. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the community has been reaching out to us, and we've been reaching out to the community. We've forged relationships and collaborations like never before, and the proof is in the pudding.
Yet it's clear that more progress needs to be made. A survey of adults in 2018 showed that 61% of white people rated police performance as excellent or good, but the numbers were 50% for Latinos and 45% for African Americans. Meanwhile, 23% of black people said they had been treated unfairly by police at some point in their lives.
We have been working very hard to overcome that, but there is still a long way to go. Many people in the minority community do not trust the police. And sad to say, many police departments have not given them reason to trust them. There are a lot of things that we have to overcome, and we have to create a new history. And that's what we're endeavoring to do here.
While shootings are down significantly, they remain an issue. During May, June, and early July of 2018, there were 24 shooting incidents in the city.
I'm a twin sister of Taiko Nesbitt, who was tragically gunned down May 31st. I stand here next to my mom, begging and pleading for the city and the community to come together just so we can have some type of justice.
In most cases, young men shot other young men. Then friends and families of the victims went gunning for the shooters.
Yet we stand in silence. Okay, now we pray for each other. As women, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters.
Some individuals that have just returned after doing time that didn't, they had old conflict and they never resolved it. The other reason is when people die, a couple of kids have died, some people feel that they, gotta retaliate.
The day after 4 people were shot, William Outlaw, along with police officers, attended a community basketball tournament to quell conflicts and revenge shootings. Police handed out water to residents in a gesture of goodwill.
We all train in mediation, so we try to get a mediation done as soon as possible, especially if we find out if it's 2 gangs, or even we find out if it's neighborhood against neighborhood.
In response to the surge in shootings, police made 24 related arrests and confiscated 14 guns, tamping down the violence.
Due to the fact that we have things in place like Project Longevity, which identifies groups and gangs, and the criminal intel meeting, which is held every day, we were able to quickly react to that. The biggest part is getting the correct intel, finding out who was involved, what it was over, and what we can do to help resolve it. Put GPSs on some people so they weren't able to go out and partake in these actions. Then we did what's called custom notifications, and we went out and we simply talked to people. And over that, almost I think it was 21 days, we didn't have a shooting in the city.
Still, critics say the department has a long way to go before it can claim to truly fulfill the promise of community policing.
The New Haven police can go one way or another. They can do more of what they've done in the past and think this is good, and then they can call it community policing. But that's really lipstick on the pig.
You know, when you talk about community policing, well, my definition would be officers that are visible, officers that can identify people in each community that are community activists, that if there are issues going on, that they can reach out to that person and let them know, hey, do you know about this, you know about that. But if you come in our community, we don't even know who the hell officers are in our community. When you come to our community, you ride around, you don't even see them. That's not community policing.
Well, I see it as a department that is trying hard, but I see it as a department that's still stuck in some very old practices. They're still into investing in technology. The technology being they just recently got bigger truncheons to beat people with. They are heavily invested in tasers, which kill people.
Nothing wrong. I'm trying to get you. You're tasing me. You're tasing me. I'm going to tase you again. No.
I said turn around.
Just set me up.
Get on the ground.
I will.
Get on the ground.
I will. I will.
Right now.
We learned today that the Board of Alders is seeking to push forth an inadequate ordinance on the Civilian Review Board as early as this Monday.
New Haven voters approved a referendum calling for a civilian review board, but it was delayed for years, and activists protested what they called a watered-down board.
Sometimes we're afraid what police may do. Our city is where we belong. Even if we're afraid what police may do, we should fight for a law that's strong.
My children are afraid to go outside and play. They are afraid of the police every time they walk through their hoods. They are afraid. And we need subpoena power right now.
I think if the CRB has investigative powers and subpoena power, I think it'll help the community a lot because it would encourage people who are having problems with the police department to come down and file through them rather than going through internal affairs. Because if you look at the internal affair record of even complaints over the last 10 years, nothing really happens to the officers anyway.
Excessive force complaints dropped from 32 in 2012 to 10 in 2018, but only 4 have been sustained by police during that time span. And critics say many people are afraid to make complaints or think they'll be useless. Ultimately, the Board of Alders voted unanimously to create a civilian review board with the kind of power and influence that community activists were asking for.
I hope that the Civilian Review Board will have a positive impact on policing and the culture of policing. It's one more set of eyes with investigation tools to look at police behavior and interaction with the people. And I hope that that will give even more confidence that the police are acting in the interest of the people of the city of New Haven, and when they're not, that they will be under the scrutiny, not just of the department, but of people who represent this community.
At the core of our challenge moving forward is to decide how many cops we can afford in New Haven, how we're going to use them, how do we get them to look more like the city, and how do we keep police officers connected to citizens, which is the root concept of community policing.
When you take a close look at community policing, a clear message comes through. Ultimately, it isn't walking beats, daily intel meetings, or heart-to-heart talks with young men who are flirting with trouble. Those are tactics. At its core, community policing is about attitude. Police officers who have a public service mentality, who empathize with the people, and who exhaust all alternatives before making arrests and using force.
If it's brought to my attention that an officer has violated someone's constitutional rights and they get brought before me, I always believe that the best route is to try and terminate that officer. I'm actually in the process with a number of people who are the repeat names that we have heard to make them leave this department.
Then you have to have police officers internally. I think it's an internal thing. You can't teach to be nice. You can't teach to be to want to help someone in a community that is not your community. So I believe it has to be something, a goodness that's internal for you to want to help a different community.
Officers that currently work in New Haven that come from other walks of life, that have never experienced what the local community experienced, is more of understanding the culture, is more of taking the time to learn about what is it that happened to you when you were being raised at home. Where you come from, who are you, and who are your parents? And I think that is very important.
They used to call this racial reconciliation. I'd rather use the term
community reconciliation. And as uncomfortable as it is for most of us to speak about race, we're coming to a point in our society where we have to. We can't make you be empathetic. We can't make you be compassionate. But for those of us that are of color, trying to give you just a slight window of how it feels and what we go through. And until we actually confront it and start making attempts to be candid about it, and we can do it being civilly and being empathetic and being respectful, taking one another's opinions and moving on. But we have to make a change.
Hold your balloons up high, nice and high. Let's not go anywhere near the trees. And you're measuring this your balloons. Go up, go up.
In April of 2019, police officers from Yale University and nearby Hamden cornered a couple in a car in New Haven's New Hallville neighborhood. They sprayed it with bullets, wounding a young woman.
20 shots fired! 20 shots fired, Argyle Street, with the car.
Roger, shots fired. 20, what's your location?
Argyle Street.
Police were responding to a report of an attempted armed robbery, but no gun was found in the car.
And when our people are not safe, they have to worry about bullets coming from those who are charged with keeping us safe. That's troubling, and that is frankly outrageous. I can't imagine what it feels like to know that your child went out to work in the evening, probably didn't want her to, and that she doesn't come home because she's got a bullet or two. That's outrageous.
After the shooting, protesters took to the streets day after day, demanding to see the body cam footage and for the officers to be fired.
We in 2019, we could build bridges to places, we could go to other planets, but we can't figure out how to build a bridge with a community between the police and the community. It's 2019.
We can't undo what happened yesterday, but we can certainly have a large measure of control over what we do moving forward. This is an opportunity for us to engage each other in better policy, engage each other in better community relations, but more importantly, engage each other to heal this community. We've gained a lot of strides in the city of New Haven, particularly in community policing and community police relations. Incidents like these erode the trust community has in its police department.
You can turn the situation around. I'll praise the Lord. I'll praise the Lord. Yes, I will. I'll praise the Lord. I don't know where this road is going to lead. All I know is where we've been and what we've been through. Ooh, yeah. If we get to see tomorrow, I hope